During Sunday dinner, my 6-year-old daughter asked, "Mommy, may I have a little of Grandma's special sweets?" Can you even begin to imagine the crushing horror of discovering that someone you loved, someone you called family, had been systematically poisoning your own child for 2 agonizing years? My heart still races, my breath still catches, just thinking about that day. Our entire world didn't just crack, it shattered into a million pieces, revealing a betrayal so deep, so calculated, it still feels like a waking nightmare. What the hell would you do if you found out your child was a twisted science experiment in the hands of a monster? It started innocently enough. "What candy, Linda?" I remember asking, my eyebrow raised, completely oblivious. My husband, Mike, just chuckled, always spoiling his mom. But then Linda's response, so casual, so normal, made Lily, our sweet, innocent Lily, bounce in her chair. "Mom, it's the candy from the special hiding spot." Before we could even process it, Lily shot into the kitchen. We heard cabinets opening, the clatter of a frantic search. "Found them," she cried, triumphantly emerging with a bag of peanuts. "These?" My blood ran cold. Grandma's special candy. My heart actually stopped beating for a second. "You're allergic?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "Has Grandma been giving you these?" She nodded, beaming, completely unaware of the horror she'd just unleashed. "Every time. She says I'm brave." Mike shot up so fast his chair crashed to the floor behind him. "What the hell?" he roared, his voice raw with disbelief. But Linda just sat there, eerily calm. "Small amounts build immunity." The room tilted. My vision swam. Those stomach bugs. Every single Sunday night for 2 years. Lily crying about her tummy. The Monday morning fevers. The random hives we could never explain away. Peanuts. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air right out of my lungs. A growl ripped from my throat, raw and uncontrolled. "You've been feeding her peanuts." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, laced with pure venom. Linda finally stood, a dismissive wave of her hand. "You're being dramatic." Dramatic? A primal instinct took over. I lunged for the kitchen, Mike right behind me. We tore through cabinets like wild animals, desperate for answers. Behind the flour container, my fingers brushed against something hard. A notebook. Exposure therapy log. Lily. It was in Linda's perfect, elegant handwriting. Mike snatched it, his hands shaking, flipping it open. His face, usually so full of life, was utterly drained of color. February 15th, Day 1. 0.5 milligrams ground peanut in chocolate chip cookie. Mild stomach discomfort as expected. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the log. That night. I remembered that night. I raced to the ER at 2 a.m. Lily's little body covered in hives, struggling to breathe. "You knew?" I screamed, the sound tearing from my chest. "You watched us panic in that hospital, and you knew." Mike kept reading, his voice hollow, each entry worse than the last. March 3rd, 2 milligrams. Vomiting occurred, but likely due to excitement from the playground earlier. I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling as I scrolled through Lily's medical records. Every single ER visit. It all matched her journal entries. I was helping her. Linda tried to snatch the journal, but Mike held it away. "You've made her weak." I was fixing? I pulled up our insurance app. We'd paid thousands. $30,000, I whispered, the number a fresh stab of pain. "Mommy?" Lily's tiny voice came from the doorway, clutching her stuffed bear, her eyes wide. "Is that why my tummy always hurts at Grandma's?" Something inside me shattered completely. "The chronic fatigue," Mike said quietly, still reading, his voice barely audible. Dr. Peterson couldn't explain why she was always exhausted. And all this time, she was fighting poison. I thought about all those work meetings I missed. The promotion that went to someone else, getting moved to part-time because Lily was always sick. The growing pains that weren't growing pains, I whispered, a horrible realization dawning. The night terrors, the food anxiety, you caused all of it. Mike's hands shook as he showed me his phone. Lily's growth chart. She's dropped from 60th percentile to 30th, he choked out. Dr. Peterson said, possible malabsorption syndrome, but it was inflammation. 2 years of my baby's body attacking itself while this woman took notes like she was conducting a science experiment. Show me page 47, Linda said suddenly, her voice too calm, too collected. Mike flipped to it. His face went gray. Consulted with Patricia regarding parental negligence. Parents refuse to acknowledge child's improving tolerance. May need intervention. Patricia. I grabbed the journal. At the bottom, in Linda's writing, family law attorney specializes in grandparent rights. My legs almost gave out. Mike caught me. You were building a case? He whispered, horrified. Mom, you were going to try to take her. Linda straightened her spine, a cold, hard look in her eyes. You're both hysterical about everything. Someone needs to think rationally about Lily's future. The autoimmune markers, Mike said, his voice hollow, remembering. The specialist said she's developing autoimmune issues. Unexplained inflammation markers. This is why. Every word was another knife twisting in my gut. The doorbell rang, a loud, jarring sound. Linda's face went white. That'll be Dad, Mike said, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. I texted him. He even managed a chilling, humorless chuckle. Funny thing about divorce agreements, Mom. Dad kept copies of everything. Including that incident with cousin Tony. You wouldn't, Linda hissed. The door opened. Mike's father, Joe, walked in, took one look at the journal in Mike's hands, and his face darkened. Still playing Dr. Linda? Thought you learned your lesson after what you did to Tony. Lily, bless her heart, ran to Grandpa Joe. Hey, princess, he said, his voice softening, but his eyes never left Linda. Why don't you go play in your room for 10 minutes? The grown-ups need to talk. 10 minutes. That's all we had before Lily would wonder why Mommy was crying, why Daddy's hands were shaking, why Grandma was packing her things. She'll need therapy, Joe said quietly, picking up the journal, flipping through it. Years of it. For the trauma, the autoimmune issues, the food anxiety. All of it. Linda reached for Lily's picture. On the wall. You can't keep her from me. I'm her grandmother. Watch us, Mike said, his voice steady now, resolute. And Linda, that call you're getting tomorrow? That's our lawyer. As we walked Linda to the door, Lily's voice drifted down from upstairs. No more Grandma's house. My heart shattered completely. No, baby, I choked out, tears streaming down my face. No more secrets. Ever. The door closed. I didn't know it then, but our words that night would hurt Linda so much that she'd be ready to use them to destroy our lives forever. I ran to every window in the house, twisting each lock, pulling every curtain closed, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Mike took the stairs 2 at a time to check on Lily. Joe sat at our kitchen table, Linda's journal spread open, his face looking 10 years older as he read entries we'd missed. He pointed to a page from 6 months ago, describing different delivery methods for the peanut powder. Mike came back down, saying Lily was still asleep, but he'd locked her bedroom window and would sleep on her floor just in case. We started tearing through the kitchen like people possessed. I threw every single thing Linda had ever brought into trash bags. Mike pulled out the spice rack. An old cinnamon container rattled wrong when he shook it. He unscrewed the lid, and ground peanut powder poured onto the counter, making both of us jump back. I grabbed the vacuum while he checked inside a vitamin bottle Linda had given us for Lily's immune system. More ground peanuts, mixed with the vitamins. My stomach turned, thinking about how many times I'd given those to Lily myself. Joe stayed that night. None of us could handle being alone. He showed us his phone, 15 voicemails from Linda. He played one where she screamed about us destroying their family, threatening to call every relative we had. Another said we'd regret this, that she knew people who could help her get Lily back. I grabbed Linda's journal and started taking pictures of every page with my phone. Mike set up the scanner, uploaded everything to 3 different cloud accounts, and emailed copies to ourselves. He pulled up our insurance app, matching every ER visit date to Linda's journal entries. The pattern was so clear it made me sick. Every time Lily got sick matched an entry about increasing the dose or trying a new hiding method. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep, I called our pediatrician's emergency line. I left a long, rambling message, explaining everything, begging them to send all of Lily's medical records immediately. The nurse who called back 20 minutes later promised someone would call first thing and mark it urgent. When Lily woke at 7 a.m., I sat on her bed trying to find the right words. She asked why Grandma wasn't here for breakfast. I told her Grandma had made a big mistake with a special candy that made her tummy hurt. She asked if Grandma was in trouble, like when she drew on the walls that time. I said, grown-ups sometimes need to take breaks to think about their choices. Her little face scrunched up. Is it my fault for eating the candy? My heart broke. I hugged her tight, promising nothing was ever her fault. After Lily went back to playing, Mike and I had our first real fight about this mess. He kept saying he should have seen it, protected Lily from his own mother. I yelled that I was her mother and missed it too, even though I saw her every day. We both ended up crying on the kitchen floor, holding each other. Mike kept apologizing, and I kept saying it wasn't his fault, while we both knew we'd carry this guilt forever. Joe came into the kitchen and offered to pay for whatever lawyer we needed. He pulled out a business card for the attorney who handled his divorce from Linda 20 years ago. Then he mentioned he'd kept every single document about what Linda did to Tony back then. It was all in his safety deposit box at the bank, and he showed us the key. Tony had almost died from Linda's treatments when he was 8. Joe had photos of him in the hospital. Monday morning came too fast. I had to call my boss about taking emergency leave. She sighed heavily, reminding me about recent performance issues. But then I mentioned potential criminal charges against a family member, and her tone changed completely. She approved 1 week unpaid, but made sure to mention my already reduced hours twice. The pediatrician's office called back at noon and got us in for an emergency appointment that afternoon. We drove there in silence, Lily playing with her tablet, asking why we were going to the doctor again. Dr. Peterson's face went white when we showed him Linda's journal. He immediately ordered comprehensive allergy testing, shaking his head, saying he should have suspected something beyond normal childhood illnesses. He wrote a referral to Irina Schmidt, the best pediatric allergist in the state, and called her office himself, getting us an appointment for the next morning. This couldn't wait. Lily sat on the exam table, swinging her legs, asking if she'd need shots today. I told her no shots, helping her down while the doctor wrote referrals and prescriptions. I kept wondering, how could Linda watch Lily suffer for 2 years, writing it all down like some kind of experiment? Did she really think making a child sick over and over would help her? Back in the car, I called Lily's school from the parking lot, asking for the principal. I explained everything. The principal gasped. Linda was banned from school property immediately. We'd meet tomorrow about a 504 plan. Mike pulled over to text his mom. She couldn't contact us anymore. Everything had to go through lawyers. His phone buzzed back in seconds with a long rant about us being dramatic and how she had grandmother's rights we couldn't just take away. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Joe, who was already on his way over with boxes from storage. That evening, Joe showed up carrying a cardboard box that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. He set it on our kitchen table, pulling out folders filled with papers from his divorce. The psychiatric evaluation from back then described Linda's boundary issues and her inability to accept medical reality when it came to other people's health. He showed us hospital records from when Tony was 8 and almost died from Linda's treatments, what she called helping. Tony had been in the ICU for 3 days after Linda gave him something she read about online that was supposed to cure his asthma. Tuesday morning, we sat in the family attorney's office. She recognized Patricia's name immediately. Patricia took the most aggressive grandparent rights cases in the state. Our attorney started making notes about preparing for an inevitable custody battle. We needed to document everything from now on. She pulled out her phone and showed us how to use a parenting app that would timestamp and save every interaction. Then she said something that made my stomach drop completely. She suggested we call CPS ourselves, before Linda could make any claims about us being unfit parents. The idea of inviting that kind of scrutiny into our lives was terrifying. But she said transparency was our best defense. I checked Facebook while Mike asked questions about restraining orders. Linda had already started posting vague stuff about being kept from her granddaughter, talking about parents who alienate grandparents and how some people don't appreciate what grandmothers do. Mike's phone started buzzing with texts from his aunts and cousins, asking what was going on. We realized she was building a narrative to make us look like the bad guys before we could even process what had happened. Our attorney scheduled a formal intake call for the next day, where she'd record our entire story and all of Linda's journal entries. She pulled up a checklist on her computer: restraining orders, medical documentation, preparing for false allegations. The list was 3 pages long, covering everything from supervised visitation protocols to what to do if police showed up for wellness checks. Wednesday morning, we took Lily to get her blood drawn for the comprehensive allergy testing. She completely melted down, screaming about not wanting more was when she wasn't even sick. The phlebotomist had to call in 2 more nurses to help hold her still while she sobbed and asked why this was happening. I tried to explain that Grandma's special candy had made her sick without scaring her more, but the guilt of putting her through this was crushing. Mike held her other hand, telling her she was brave, tears running down his own face. After we got home and Lily was watching cartoons, my phone rang with a blocked number. The man introduced himself as Jameson McKenna from CPS. He was calling to schedule a home visit after we self-reported. His voice was professional but cold. They had to investigate all aspects, including our parenting abilities. My stomach dropped as he listed everything they'd need to see: Lily's medical records, our home environment, our ability to provide proper care. He scheduled the visit for Friday afternoon. Both parents needed to be present. Thursday, our attorney sent Linda an official cease and desist letter by certified mail and email. Within 2 hours, Patricia responded with her own letter threatening legal action for grandparent alienation and demanding regular visitation rights immediately. The speed of the response showed they'd been preparing this. Patricia's letter claimed we were causing psychological harm to Lily by denying her a relationship with her loving grandmother. It accused us of parental alienation syndrome and said Linda had documented years of us limiting her access to Lily. It ended with a threat to file for emergency custody if we didn't agree to immediate supervised visitation 3 times a week. Friday morning, we sat in the principal's conference room for Lily's 504 plan meeting. The school nurse pulled up attendance records on her laptop. 47 days missed in 2 years, she pointed out, turning the screen toward us. And almost all of them were Mondays. The pattern jumped out like it was highlighted in neon now that we knew what to look for. My stomach churned as I stared at the dates, matching Linda's journal entries. Mike squeezed my hand under the table while the principal took notes about new safety protocols. The nurse printed out the attendance report, adding it to our growing stack of evidence. Monday afternoon, we took Lily to her first appointment with Chamir at the Children's Therapy Center. Lily sat on the floor playing with toy animals while Kem asked gentle questions about Grandma's house. "Grandma gave me special brave candy," Lily said, making a toy elephant walk across the carpet. "Am I still brave without the candy?" she asked, looking up at Kem with those big eyes. My heart cracked right down the middle, hearing my baby question her own courage. Kem wrote notes while Lily acted out scenes, showing how her tummy hurt after eating grandma's treats. The session lasted an hour, but felt like 10 minutes and forever at the same time. Wednesday afternoon, Jameson McKenna showed up at our door with his supervisor for the CPS home visit. They walked through every room, taking photos and notes on their tablets. Jameson checked our food storage, opening cabinets and the fridge, while his supervisor counted the EpiPens we'd stationed throughout the house. They inspected Lily's bedroom, the bathroom, even our medicine cabinet. Both stayed neutral and professional, but I caught them exchanging looks when they saw the medical bills spread across our dining table. Jameson asked to see Lily's medical records and Linda's journal, photographing every page. His supervisor interviewed Mike and me separately about our parenting routines and Lily's daily care. The whole visit took 3 hours and left us feeling exposed and judged, even though they said we were doing everything right. That same night, around 10 p.m., 2 police officers knocked on our door, saying they'd received a report about medical neglect. Mike showed them the CPS visit report from earlier that day while I explained about Linda and the protective order we were filing. The officers looked tired and annoyed. They made a quick report and told us to call if Linda showed up. One of them mentioned this was the 3rd wellness check they'd done that week for custody disputes. Thursday, we finally met with Irina Schmidt at the pediatric allergy clinic to review Lily's test results. She spread the lab reports across her desk, pointing to numbers that made my hands shake. Lily's peanut allergy was off the charts severe. Plus, she'd developed new sensitivities to tree nuts and sesame from the repeated exposure. Irina explained how Linda's hidden doses had caused Lily's immune system to go haywire, attacking everything as a threat. She could have died any of those times, Irina said quietly. The worst part was learning the damage might be permanent. Irina spent another hour preparing a detailed medical report, linking every one of Lily's symptoms to peanut exposure. She showed us how the growth delays, the autoimmune markers, even the chronic fatigue, all traced back to Linda's treatments. She printed 3 copies and signed each one, then looked us straight in the eye. This was deliberate harm and medically ignorant, she said. I'll testify in court if you need me. Her report was 12 pages of damning medical evidence that no judge could ignore. Our attorney filed for an emergency protective order that afternoon. She called to say the hearing was set for next Tuesday. Patricia would definitely show up to argue for grandparent rights at the same hearing. The court clerk had already notified Linda, so we should expect escalation over the weekend. Mike's phone started blowing up within an hour. His aunt called, saying Linda misunderstood and we were being cruel. His brother texted that he never let Linda babysit his kids because something always felt off. The family group chat turned into a war zone, relatives picking sides. Mike's cousin shared screenshots of Linda's Facebook posts about being a victim of parental alienation. We had to leave the chat after Mike's uncle called us child abusers for keeping Lily from her grandmother. Friday morning, Mike got called into his boss's office. His boss had printed out his phone records, showing all the personal calls during the Linda crisis. She slid a written warning across the desk, telling him to get his home life together or consider if this position was right for him. Mike tried explaining, but she cut him off. Everyone has personal problems, but work comes first. The warning went in his permanent file and put him on probation for 90 days. That afternoon, we got a letter from our insurance company denying coverage for Lily's new allergy treatments. They called the therapy protocol experimental. Even though Irina had submitted pages of documentation, the rejection letter listed an appeals process that would take months, while Lily needed treatment now. We put $3,000 on credit cards that afternoon to pay for her first month of medications and specialized foods. Mike set up a payment plan for the rest while I calculated how many months of groceries that money could have bought. The next morning, Kem called me at work. Lily's progress. She described watching Lily inspect every single goldfish cracker for 10 minutes during snack time, turning each one over, asking if someone put something bad inside. Kem explained that Lily now refused to eat anything she hadn't watched being prepared, even rejecting sealed yogurt containers. This level of food anxiety in a 5-year-old wasn't normal childhood pickiness, but a trauma response from 2 years of being secretly poisoned. I left work early again. At school, the lunch aide reported Lily had eaten only 3 bites of her sandwich after checking each ingredient separately. 2 days later, we sat in the CPS office downtown while Jameson interviewed Lily in a special room with toys and cameras. Through the observation window, I watched my daughter clutch her stuffed bear and tell him about the special candy at Grandma's house that made her tummy hurt. But Grandma said she was brave for eating it. Jameson kept his face neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten when Lily described throwing up in Grandma's bathroom and being told not to tell Mommy because it would make me sad. She showed him on a doll where her tummy hurt after eating Grandma's cookies and demonstrated how she used to curl up on the floor when the pain got really bad. Jameson asked gentle questions about other foods at Grandma's, and Lily listed brownies, ice cream, and special juice that all tasted funny, but Grandma said would help her grow big and strong. After the interview, Jameson met with us privately. He requested permission to pull all of Lily's medical and school records, plus interviewed Joe about Linda's history. He assured us the investigation was building a clear pattern of deliberate harm, even though the process felt like strangers digging through every corner of our lives. The next week, Joe drove 3 hours to meet with CPS investigators. He brought 2 file boxes from his storage unit, handing over hospital records from 25 years ago, showing his nephew Tony hospitalized 5 times between ages 3 and 7 under Linda's care for unexplained stomach problems, mysterious rashes, and breathing difficulties that doctors couldn't diagnose. The similarities to Lily's medical history made the CPS supervisor request additional documentation. Joe sat there, describing how Linda always insisted Tony was just sensitive and needed to toughen up. Tony himself sent his adult medical records overnight after Joe called him. I spent an hour reading about his ongoing digestive problems, severe food anxiety, and 3 different anxiety medications he still takes at 32 years old. His written statement described Linda making him eat foods that made him sick because she believed exposure would cure his weakness and how she kept detailed notes in a notebook she hid from his parents. Reading how he still can't eat certain foods without panic attacks 20 years later made me run to the bathroom and throw up while Mike held the pages with shaking hands. 3 days after that, the school principal called my cell during a meeting. Linda had shown up claiming a family emergency, demanding to take Lily home immediately. The office staff followed our new safety protocol and refused to release her. But Linda argued for 20 minutes, insisting she had grandparent rights and threatening to call her lawyer. Security footage showed Linda pacing in the lobby, trying to see into classrooms, taking photos of staff who blocked her access before finally leaving when the resource officer approached. We filed another police report, adding the incident to our growing documentation folder that now took up an entire filing cabinet drawer. Patricia's formal petition arrived by certified mail 2 days later. 30 pages of legal documents painting us as unstable parents who were alienating a loving grandmother from her only grandchild out of spite and mental instability. The filing twisted every fact, claiming we were denying Lily a vital family relationship, causing psychological harm through parental alienation, and creating false allegations to support our irrational fears. She demanded immediate visitation rights, accused us of coaching Lily to lie, and suggested we needed psychological evaluation to determine our fitness as parents. Our attorney spent 4 hours preparing our response, warning us that judges often sympathize with grandparents, even in cases like ours. The emergency protective order hearing came 2 weeks later in a courtroom that smelled like old coffee and desperation. The judge reviewed Linda's journal, the CPS reports, and medical evidence for 40 minutes while Linda sat across from us with Patricia, whispering in her ear. He granted temporary protection but also ordered a family evaluation by a court-appointed psychologist and said Linda could have supervised visitation at a court facility pending the investigation outcome. Our attorney called it a partial victory, but it felt like being punched in the stomach, knowing Linda would still get to see Lily even after everything she'd done. The following Saturday, we attended Lily's friend Emma's 6th birthday party. Everything seemed normal until they brought out peanut butter cookies. Lily took one look at them and started screaming that they were bad candy while backing away, trying to hide under the picnic table. Other parents stared as I crawled under the table to hold her while she sobbed that Grandma's candy was here and it would hurt her tummy. We left within 10 minutes, Lily clinging to me, several parents whispering about what kind of trauma would cause that reaction in a child. Monday morning, my boss called me into her office. A performance improvement plan sat on her desk, outlining my excessive absences, lack of focus, and inability to maintain professional boundaries. She cited 17 different instances of leaving early or missing meetings in the past month and said I had 90 days to show improvement or face termination. I spent my lunch break in my car researching FMLA paperwork, calculating whether we could survive on just Mike's salary if I lost my job because of what Linda had done. Mike found a support group through his therapist that met Tuesday nights. He went to his first meeting 3 weeks after we kicked Linda out. I stayed home with Lily, doing homework while he drove across town. He came back 2 hours later and sat at the kitchen table, silent for 10 minutes, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug he wasn't drinking from. Finally, he looked up and told me he'd been making excuses for Linda his whole life. The group leader had asked him to list times his mom crossed boundaries. Mike filled 3 pages just from the last 5 years. He realized he'd trained himself to ignore red flags because admitting them meant admitting his mom was dangerous. The next morning, I woke up to find him reading a book about toxic parents he'd bought after the meeting. He highlighted entire pages and left sticky notes with "This is exactly what she does" written on them. That same day, Linda started her Facebook campaign. My cousin texted me screenshots of Linda's posts about helicopter parents ruining kids. She shared articles about food allergies being overblown and kids needing to toughen up. Each post got dozens of likes from her church friends and Mike's relatives. Our attorney told us not to engage when I called her, crying about it. She said it would only give Patricia ammunition to claim we were harassing Linda. I had to watch Mike's aunt comment that we were being cruel to a loving grandmother. His cousin shared one of Linda's posts, adding that some parents just want attention. I blocked 15 people that week, but screenshots kept coming. Mike's support group taught him about flying monkeys, people who do the abuser's work for them. That's exactly what Linda's Facebook army had become. 3 days later, we took Lily back to see Irina for her follow-up. The nurse drew more blood while Lily squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. Irina came in with the test results, looking serious. She showed us charts where Lily's inflammation markers should be near 0, but were still at dangerous levels. The damage from 2 years of Linda's poisoning had triggered an ongoing immune response. Lily's body was still attacking itself, even though the peanut exposure had stopped. Irina explained it could take years for her system to calm down. Some kids never fully recover from this kind of repeated allergic trauma. She prescribed new medications and recommended monthly blood work. The pharmacy bill was $400 after insurance. That afternoon, Jameson called. CPS had finished their preliminary investigation. He'd interviewed Lily's teachers, her doctor, reviewed all our documentation. The state substantiated our concerns about Linda's harmful actions. He was recommending no unsupervised contact between Linda and Lily and strongly suggested Linda undergo psychological evaluation before any contact at all. His report would support us in court, but he warned that judges don't always follow CPS recommendations. We got the official report in the mail 5 days later. Reading it made everything more real. Seeing substantiated child endangerment in black and white next to Linda's name felt like validation and horror mixed together. Mike made copies for our attorney and kept the original in our new fireproof safe. 2 weeks later, Patricia hit us with subpoenas for our financial records. 3 years of bank statements, tax returns, credit card records. Our attorney explained Patricia was trying to prove we were somehow profiting from keeping Linda away. The theory was so crazy it would be funny if it wasn't costing us $200 an hour to fight. Patricia claimed we were saving money on babysitting by cutting Linda off. She actually calculated how much we would have saved and demanded we prove we weren't pocketing it. Our attorney had to file motions to limit the scope of what we had to provide. We spent 8 hours gathering documents, organizing them the way the court required. Mike had to take a day off work just to deal with the paperwork. The following week, we met with our attorney for deposition prep. She had us practice answering Patricia's questions without getting emotional. Patricia would try to make us angry, so we'd say something she could twist. Our attorney played Patricia's role, asking horrible questions about our parenting, accusing us of coaching Lily and making up the allergy for attention. I had to practice saying, "That's not accurate," instead of screaming like I wanted to. Mike struggled with questions about his childhood with Linda. Patricia would definitely ask if Linda ever hurt him to establish a pattern of false accusations. Our attorney taught us to stick to facts about Lily and not get pulled into other topics. She warned us, Patricia was known for marathon depositions that lasted all day. We need to stay calm for hours while Patricia tried every trick to break us. The court-ordered mediation happened 3 weeks later in a gray conference room that smelled like old carpet. Linda sat across from us with Patricia while the mediator tried to find common ground. Linda insisted she'd been helping Lily build immunity based on research she'd done online. She pulled out printed articles about exposure therapy that had nothing to do with life-threatening allergies. The mediator asked if she understood she could have killed Lily. Linda said we were being dramatic and Lily was never in real danger. She claimed the hospital visits were from other issues and we were blaming her unfairly. When the mediator asked Linda to acknowledge any wrongdoing, she refused completely. Patricia argued we were denying Lily a loving relationship with her grandmother over a misunderstanding. The mediator ended the session after 2 hours, writing in his report that reconciliation seemed impossible without Linda accepting responsibility. That weekend, CPS filed their official report with the court. It recommended Linda have no unsupervised access to Lily and undergo psychiatric evaluation before any contact. They used the phrase significant risk of continued harm 3 times in the document. Jameson had been thorough, documenting Linda's lack of remorse and refusal to acknowledge the medical danger. The report also noted the pattern with cousin Tony, showing this wasn't an isolated incident. Our attorney said it was the strongest CPS report she'd seen in a grandparent rights case. 5 days later, I came home from grocery shopping to find a gift bag on our porch. My hands shook as I recognized Linda's handwriting on the tag. Inside were Lily's favorite toys from Linda's house and a note saying, "I forgive you for keeping her from me." I called the police while Mike photographed everything without touching it. The officer who came said it was technically a protective order violation. He took the items as evidence and filed another report. We'd been through this so many times that the officer knew our case number by heart. He told us to keep documenting everything because judges needed to see patterns of violation. That night, Joe called Mike to say he'd testify at the final hearing. He knew it would destroy what was left of his relationship with Linda's family. Her siblings were already calling him a traitor for giving us the divorce documents. But Joe said protecting Lily mattered more than keeping peace with people who enabled Linda. He'd been silent when Linda hurt Tony 20 years ago, he wouldn't make that mistake again. He'd already written his statement about Linda's past behavior and was ready to say it under oath. The night before the final hearing arrived faster than we expected. Mike and I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by notes and documents while Lily slept upstairs. We went through every possible outcome our attorney had warned us about. From Linda getting supervised visits to the judge dismissing everything completely. Mike kept tapping his pen against the table as we talked about safety plans if Linda got any kind of access to Lily. We agreed that if the worst happened and she got visits, we'd hire a professional supervisor ourselves and document every single second. Neither of us could sleep that night, just holding each other and checking on Lily every hour like we did when she was a baby. The courthouse was packed the next morning. My hands shook as we walked through the metal detectors with our attorney carrying 3 boxes of evidence. Linda sat at the other table with Patricia, wearing a soft pink cardigan and pearl necklace like she was going to church instead of fighting for access to the child she poisoned. Our attorney started by laying out Linda's journal, page by page, on the evidence table. Each entry blown up and highlighted to show the dates matching our ER visits. She pointed to specific entries where Linda documented Lily's reactions like a scientist recording data on lab rats. The medical bills came next. Printed statements showing $30,000 in emergency room charges, specialist visits, and treatments for mysterious illnesses that Linda had caused. Patricia objected 4 times, but the judge allowed everything since Linda had written it herself. Our attorney then presented the CPS report, reading key sections about the pattern of harm and Linda's refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing. The judge leaned forward when our attorney showed the timeline overlay with Linda's journal entries on top and Lily's medical records below, creating a perfect match of cause and effect. Linda took the stand after lunch. Patricia guided her through a story about how she'd researched exposure therapy online and thought she was helping build Lily's immunity. She pulled out printed articles from random websites, claiming she was following legitimate medical advice, though none were from real medical sources. Linda cried softly, saying she only wanted to help her granddaughter be normal and not live in fear of food. Patricia tried to paint us as helicopter parents who were using this misunderstanding to cut Linda out of Lily's life out of spite. She suggested we were the ones harming Lily by denying her a relationship with a loving grandmother who made one mistake. The judge asked Linda directly if she understood that peanuts could kill Lily, and Linda said, "We were being dramatic about the severity of the allergy." Jameson took the stand next, speaking in his calm, professional voice about his investigation findings. He confirmed Lily had told him multiple times about the brave candy that made her tummy hurt, using the exact same words. He testified about finding the hidden peanut products during the home visit to Linda's house after she'd claimed she had none. The judge asked about the pattern with cousin Tony, and Jameson carefully explained the similarities without violating Tony's privacy. He stated that based on his investigation, Linda posed a significant risk of continued harm if given unsupervised access to any child with medical conditions. Patricia tried to shake him by suggesting he was biased because we'd self-reported, but Jameson stayed steady and professional. Irina testified last, and her testimony was devastating for Linda's case. She explained in simple terms how exposure therapy actually works. She told the court that real exposure therapy for allergies requires medical supervision, blood tests, and microscopic doses that increase by tiny amounts over months or years. She held up a visual showing the difference between a medical dose and what Linda had been giving Lily, with Linda's amounts being hundreds of times larger. The judge asked her about the long-term damage, and Irina explained that Lily now had inflammation markers that might never go away completely. She said Linda's actions could have triggered additional autoimmune conditions that would affect Lily for life. When Patricia suggested Irina was exaggerating, Irina pulled up medical journals and studies, showing exactly what repeated allergen exposure does to a child's developing immune system. The judge took a 20-minute recess before announcing his decision. "Those were the longest 20 minutes of my life." When he came back, he denied Linda's petition for grandparent rights completely and upheld the protective order for 1 full year. He ordered Linda to undergo psychological evaluation and complete any recommended treatment before she could even think about requesting supervised visits. He used words like reckless endangerment and deliberate harm, making it clear he saw through Linda's grandmother act completely. Linda sobbed loudly while Patricia gathered their papers, and I felt nothing but relief that Lily was safe from her. Within hours of the ruling, Mike's phone started buzzing. Messages from Linda's family calling us monsters for keeping her from her only grandchild. His aunt posted on Facebook about how we were cruel and vindictive, twisting the story to make Linda the victim of overprotective parents. Mike's cousin shared articles about grandparent alienation and tagged us both, forcing us to block her and 12 other relatives who piled on. We spent that evening blocking people and trying to shield Lily from knowing that half her extended family now hated us. Some relatives we'd been close to for years chose Linda's side without even asking for our version of events. 2 weeks later, Jameson called. CPS was closing our case with a safety plan in place that included keeping the protective order active. He said, "We'd done everything right by coming forward and that Lily was lucky to have parents who fought so hard to protect her." The safety plan included provisions for reopening the case immediately if Linda violated the protective order or tried to contact Lily through third parties. He wished us luck and said he'd never seen such clear documentation of intentional harm in a grandparent case before. 3 months passed before we saw real progress with Lily's eating, but when it came, it felt like a miracle. She sat at dinner one night and ate her entire meal without asking once what was in it or checking the ingredients herself. Kem called it a breakthrough moment when we told her at the next therapy session, though she warned us Lily still had months or maybe years of work ahead. The food anxiety Linda had created wouldn't disappear overnight. But seeing Lily eat without fear for the first time in 2 years made me cry happy tears. Our financial advisor looked grim when we sat down to review the damage from this whole situation a week later. Between the medical bills from 2 years of ER visits, the legal fees for the protection order and custody battle, and Lily's ongoing therapy and specialist visits, we owed $45,000. She helped us consolidate some of the medical debt and set up payment plans, but it meant putting off buying a house for at least 5 more years. Mike had to turn down a promotion that would have required monthly travel because we couldn't risk him being away if Linda tried something. We were looking at years of financial recovery from the damage Linda had caused. But at least Lily was safe and starting to heal. Mike found a therapist through a support group. We sat in her waiting room that first Thursday afternoon, both of us staring at the beige walls, not talking. The therapist had us fill out intake forms separately. I checked every box about family trauma and trust issues, while Mike's pen scratched across his paper, too. She called us in together. We sat on opposite ends of her couch like strangers, which felt about right since we'd barely talked about anything except logistics for weeks. The therapist asked us to describe what brought us there. Mike started crying immediately, saying he should have protected Lily from his mother years ago. I grabbed his hand and told him we both missed the signs, but the therapist stopped us. Blame isn't productive right now. She gave us homework: write down 3 times we'd successfully protected Lily together, and 3 warning signs we'd recognize now that we didn't before. We scheduled weekly sessions and left holding hands for the first time in days. Joe called that weekend, asking if he could see Lily at the park since the protective order didn't include him. Mike and I talked it over with Kem first, who said supervised visits with safe family members could help Lily process that not all grandparents were dangerous. We met Joe at the park Sunday morning with clear rules: he couldn't mention Linda or give Lily any food. He brought a portable easel and watercolors, setting them up near the playground while Lily played on the swings. She was hesitant at first, but Joe just started painting the trees and didn't push her. After 20 minutes, she wandered over to watch, and he handed her a brush without saying anything. They painted side by side for an hour, Joe showing her how to mix colors while I sat on a nearby bench watching every move. When we left, Lily asked if Grandpa Joe could come again next week, and we said yes. The school called Monday morning, saying they'd finalized Lily's 504 plan after reviewing all the medical documentation. The principal met with us personally to go over every detail, showing us the bright red alert in their system about Linda being prohibited from campus. They'd added Lily's photo to the office bulletin board with a note that only Mike or I could pick her up. No exceptions. The nurse showed us where they'd store Lily's new EpiPens in 3 different locations and confirmed all staff had been trained on recognizing allergic reactions. The cafeteria manager walked us through their new protocols for Lily's meals, including a special tray color and dedicated prep area. We signed the paperwork, and the principal assured us they took this seriously after what happened. I spent Tuesday morning at HR filling out FMLA paperwork while my boss sat in the corner looking annoyed. The HR representative reviewed my documentation from Kem and Arena, confirming I qualified for intermittent leave for Lily's ongoing treatment. My boss tried arguing that I'd already used too much time, but HR shut her down, explaining that FMLA was legally protected. They approved 12 weeks of intermittent leave that I could use for therapy appointments, medical visits, and emergency situations. My performance plan got adjusted to remove attendance as a metric since my absences would now be protected. My boss left the meeting without speaking to me, but I didn't care because Lily needed me more than this job did. Wednesday's mail brought a thick envelope from Patricia's law office that Mike opened with shaking hands. Linda's apology letter was 3 pages of justification disguised as remorse, saying she was sorry we'd misunderstood her intentions. She wrote that she forgave us for our harsh reaction and looked forward to when we'd realized what we'd lost by cutting her out. The last paragraph mentioned she was praying we'd come to our senses before Lily forgot her loving grandmother completely. Mike wanted to burn it, but I called our attorney instead, who told us to file it with everything else. She said Linda was trying to establish a paper trail of attempted reconciliation for future legal action. We made copies and put the original in our growing legal file. Our attorney suggested we draft a victim impact statement, even if we never used it, saying it would help us process what happened. We spent Thursday evening at her office, going through every detail while she typed our words. Mike talked about watching his daughter suffer for 2 years while his mother took notes like a scientist. I described the financial devastation and career damage from constant emergencies that weren't real emergencies at all. The attorney helped us quantify everything from medical costs to therapy bills to lost wages and promotions. She said we had grounds for a civil suit worth several $100,000, but understood when we said we just wanted to focus on healing. Having the statement written down felt powerful, though, knowing we could seek justice if we ever changed our minds. Saturday dinner was quiet until Lily looked up from her plate and asked if Grandma Linda still loved her, even though she made her sick. Mike dropped his fork, and I felt my chest tighten, but we'd practiced this with chemistry. I told Lily that sometimes people who love us don't know how to show it safely, and our job is to protect ourselves while still keeping love in our hearts. She nodded and said she loved Grandma Linda but didn't want to see her because her tummy hurt there. Mike added that loving someone doesn't mean we have to let them hurt us, and Lily seemed to understand. She went back to eating and actually finished her whole meal without checking the ingredients once. 6 months after that horrible dinner revelation, I looked around at our different, but steadier life. Lily's weight had climbed back to the 45th percentile, and she only asked about ingredients half the time now. Mike and I weren't perfect, but therapy helped us talk without blame and recognize triggers before they exploded. The medical bills still crushed us, but payment plans made them manageable, and Lily's health was worth any price. Joe came every Sunday with art supplies, and Lily had covered our fridge with paintings of trees and flowers and one small picture of a house with no grandma inside. We'd built new routines and boundaries that kept Linda's poison out, even though her shadow still lingered. The scars she left would last forever, but we were learning to live with them, protecting our daughter one careful day at a time. Have you ever faced such an unthinkable betrayal from someone you loved and trusted? How did you pick up the pieces and rebuild your family, your sense of safety? I'd really love to hear your experiences in the comments below.